Good morning, everyone. We are so glad that you're here this morning. Today is a very special day. Of course, every Lord's Day is a very special day, but today is an especially special day because today we get to celebrate. 1 Corinthians chapter 12 tells us that when one part of the body is honored, all parts join in and celebrate with it. And today we've got several very special young people who have accomplished something really spectacular, who are receiving that honor that is due them. And so we, by extension, just get to jump in and join in the celebration. So let me tell you real quick about what's happening this morning so that you can make plans to be a part of it all. Worship service is normal, as nothing's changed. We're going to have the sermon followed by the invitation. Since it's the first Sunday of the month, we will take up a missions collection after the invitation song. I've asked Caleb if he would come up after the missions collection to lead one more closing song. And during that time, if you have a child that has gone to Bible hour, if you would please go get your kiddo and come back to your seats, and then we will have a closing prayer to kind of end our worship service. But stay where you are. Don't get up and head out. We're going to immediately get into our senior presentations where we have the slideshow. We'll have the elders come up and pray for each individual graduate. After the senior presentations, don't run off, okay? It makes no sense to go buy lunch today. It makes no sense to go slave over a hot stove. We have lunch ready for you. We're having a potluck in honor for our graduates, and we want everyone here to come be a part of that. Be a part of our family celebration. The seniors have some tables set up, so you can go look at the pictures and kind of check out about them. If you brought a gift or a card, it'd be a perfect time to drop that off. So come, please stick around for all of this. Encourage our young people. Congratulate them for their accomplishments. This evening, as has been mentioned, life groups are meeting as usual, so there's a lot going on today, a lot of ways to be involved in your church family. So really take advantage of that. This morning, though, I want to start with a question. And it's probably a question that's on a lot of our graduates' minds. It's probably even on some of not graduates' minds. That question is, where do I go from here? I remember when I was in high school, actually is much earlier than that, it was a weird thought to me that someday I would not be in school anymore. And really that was kind of my whole frame of reference. I really didn't have many memories from before kindergarten. And I had no memories after high school because it hadn't happened yet. My whole life had been focused around a bell ringing every hour and somebody telling me where to go. You go do an hour of math, then bell rings. Go do an hour of science, bell rings. You're doing lunch at this time. You're going home at this time. And it didn't bother me. I didn't care. I was glad to have somebody telling me what to do. But it was a weird thought that someday a bell would stop ringing. Until then, this question, where do I go from here, this question had been answered for me. Where do I go from here? You go down the hall to Mr. Rodney's class. But inevitably, the day came where I went to high school for the last time, and then that question was plopped into my lap, and I was expected to answer it. Where do I go from here? That's now my question to answer. That might be your question. Where do I go from here? You don't even have to be a high school graduate to be chewing on this question. All throughout life, it seems like we come up against this. Maybe we feel like we're standing in a doorway, we're leaving a certain era of life, and we're kind of walking out of it, and we're looking at this landscape full of options and possibilities and opportunities. And maybe it's so huge, so vast, that we feel so small and lost, and we're still asking that question, where do I go from here? If you're thinking that, you are in the right place because I did the hard work for you. I found the answer. Okay? You ready? Here's the answer. Where do I go from here? You're welcome. Okay? No need to thank me. I'm just doing my job. Okay? Where do I go from here? Anywhere. With Jesus. Okay? As I'm sure you're aware, the sermons this year, our kind of series, is pulling songs from the songbook and kind of using those to craft the sermons. And as we just sang Anywhere with Jesus, I'm not this morning going to do like a verse-by-verse breakdown of the song. I'm not going to dig up the history and talk about the author. Instead, we're just going to kind of use this general idea of anywhere with Jesus to answer this question of where do I go from here? And this thought of anywhere with Jesus, this actually is founded in Scripture. We're going to be doing a little bit of Bible hopping around this morning, so be sure and have those handy. We're going to start this morning in Colossians. Colossians chapter 3. I can't find it without singing the song. It's right after Philippians. So Colossians chapter 3. Here, Paul is talking, and he says, whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord, giving thanks to the Father through him. Whatever you do. So this is almost a direct correlation to anywhere with Jesus. Whatever you do, anything. You know, Paul, he's a really smart guy. He's got a lot of this stuff figured out. And he's telling us, whatever you do, there's not just one specific right thing that we have to do. You know, if he had a formula, this is how you get to heaven, these exact steps, he would have written it for us. He held nothing back. But here he's saying, whatever you do, there's a vast field of things we can do in life. God made us to be different. He gave us different talents, different interests, different personalities and attitudes. He expects us to go in different directions. And so Paul's saying, whatever you do, that's fine, anywhere we go. But whatever you do, even though there's this huge variety of things that are pleasing to God, there's only one thing that's pleasing to God, and that's using those talents, using that variety to serve him. Whatever you do, do it in the name of the Lord. Anywhere with Jesus. So, if you're thinking about going into welding, great, do it in the name of the Lord. If you're wanting to go into teaching, great, do it in the name of the Lord. If you're going to be a cashier or a doctor or a homemaker or whatever, do it in the name of the Lord. Well, that kind of brings us up to another question. Let's go with welding. If you're going to go into welding, how do I weld for Jesus? How do I weld in the name of the Lord? I mean, I've read the Bible. I didn't see it anywhere in there. Nowhere does it say how to weld for Jesus. Well, instead of giving us a list of every possible situation and how to act in that situation, the Bible instead tells us how to act in any situation. And so we're going to look at a couple of ways that the Bible tells us how we're supposed to act in any situation, including welding. Let's look at 1 Peter chapter 4. First Peter 4:10. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. When we serve others with a godly attitude, we are serving God. See, Jesus, he talks about this when he came back, when he was resurrected, and he's talking with Peter. And he says, Peter, do you love me? Peter says, Lord, you know I love you. What did Jesus say next? Feed my sheep. Jesus could have said, Peter, if you love me, wash my feet. I mean, that would have been fair, right? Jesus washed their feet just a little while ago. So if you love him, that's how to serve him, wash his feet. No, he doesn't say that. He could have said, Peter, if you love me, sing a song about me. Peter, if you love me, put some money in the plate when it comes around. No, he says, Peter, if you love me, if you want to serve me, then take care of the people that I love. And who is it that Jesus loves? Everybody. We have thousands of opportunities every day to serve the Lord. See, imagine if Jesus actually walked into our building here, like an actual physical person. This is Jesus, it's no question. And he came in and he said, hey, after church, could I get somebody to come down the road and help me with something? Boy, after church, there would be a stampede to the parking lot, and we'd be peeling out and burning rubber down the road. At least that's me. I mean, I would cancel my afternoon plans. I would skip lunch because I want to be the first one to be there because I want to serve my God. Here's an opportunity. Oh, boy, Jesus needs something. I'm there. But if he wants a car wash, there's not going to be a speck of dirt on that thing. If he wants a meal cooked, I'm going to cook something so good that Gordon Ramsay is going to cry because it's so awesome. I mean, it's going to be the best thing ever. And Jesus is like, but I don't need welding done. I don't need my car fixed. I don't need a meal made. I don't need a card written to me. But I've got a lot of people that I love that they need those things. When we serve others with that godly attitude, when we serve others in the name of the Lord, we're serving God. Jesus says that even if you give something as simple as a cup of cold water because you're my disciple, your reward will not be lost. Serving others with a godly attitude is serving God. Another way that we can weld for Jesus, that we can go anywhere with Jesus, is by making our faith a noticeable part of our life. Now, what does that mean? That means that while we're using those talents that God gave us, we are exemplifying Christ no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing. All of us, we don't spend all of our time here in this room with each other, encouraging each other and building each other up and praising God and worshiping. We spend the most of our time away from here. That's our talents and our interests. They lead us to different professions and careers, and those professions and careers take us into different places. So if you're going to be that welder, you're probably going to spend a lot of time in a factory or a shop. If you're going into nursing, you're going to spend a lot of time at a hospital or a clinic. A cashier is going to spend a lot of time at a store. You get the idea. You're going to spend a lot of time in other places, and a lot of that time is probably going to be spent around other people. And quite often, those other people that we spend time around, those workplaces, can be crude. I mean, we could make it nice and say they're just a little rough around the edges, but some places are just downright crude. They're full of foul language and gossip and immorality. Romans 12:2 tells us, do not conform to the pattern of this world any longer, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Don't be like those places. Here's the big problem. We want to fit in. That's our problem as people, is we don't want to stand out. We don't want to be the weirdos. We want to just fit in. So when we go to one of those work environments where people cuss up a storm, and they gossip left and right. They talk about everybody behind their back, and they fly off the handle at every little thing, and they brag about their immorality. If we're trying to fit in with that, that's a problem. Because anywhere with Jesus means that Jesus goes anywhere with you. Jesus is a light, so you go into the darkness and you're taking a light. In order for a candle to fit into the darkness around it, it has to snuff out that light. So we go into the darkness, and we just want to be one of the guys. We've been taught the song since we were little kids, this little light of mine, hide it under a bushel? No. Won't let Satan it out. We go into those workplaces when we're trying to fit in with those kind of people. We either have to put a bushel over it, or we have to let Satan it out. I bet you've heard this expression. If it looks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, what is it? It's a duck. Very good. You all pass. If we dress like the world, if we talk like the world, if we act like the world, we are not pleasing to God, because those are opposite things. The book of James tells us that friendship with the world is enmity with God. We can't try to fit into the world and still try and snuggle up with God. It doesn't work. It's like going to Batman's birthday party dressed like the Joker. That's his enemy. He's going to punch you in the face and throw you out. The book of Psalms, a book full of wisdom and poetry. The very first verse of the very first psalm, this is how it leads. It's how it starts this whole book of wisdom. It says, blessed is the one who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, who does not stand in the stance that sinners take, who does not sit in the company of mockers. Blessed is the person who's different, who doesn't fit in. We're supposed to be different. I'll tell you a real powerful way to be different. Use your words to build others up. So much of the world, we see this, in our workplaces. We see this all over the internet. People use their words to tear each other down, to brag about themselves, to gossip, to hurt others. Ephesians 4:29, though, tells us, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is useful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Imagine if you were that person that only used their words to build others up. I mean, don't you want to be around those kind of people that they're constantly building others up? Imagine the example you would set. You would not be just a candle. You would be a bonfire. People would notice that. People would flock to that. And you don't even know the kind of influence that you would have on somebody just being a light for Christ as you weld, as you nurse, as you stock grocery shelves. Exemplifying Christ as you use those talents. That's what God expects of us. He gave us talents and expects us to use those to serve and glorify Him. Now, anywhere with Jesus, I said that I wasn't really going to do a verse-by-verse breakdown of the song, but I am going to talk about one small snippet of the song. So anywhere with Jesus, anywhere He leads me in this world below, okay? So we started with this question, where do I go from here? And the answer that we're looking at is anywhere with Jesus. That doesn't mean that we can go anywhere and just drag Jesus along like a dog. I'm sure that we've all seen somebody walking a dog and it's like peeling out sideways, trying to go off this way. You're like, no, Fluffy, we're going this way. We can't make God an afterthought. And that's unfortunately what a lot of people do, even people in the church. We focus, here's what I want. I found it, the shiny thing, the job, the location, the income. Here's what I want. I'm going to drag Jesus along with me. Come on, Jesus, we're going this way. And He's like, I don't want to go that way. That's too bad. I'm going anywhere, and anywhere with Jesus means that you come with me. God should not be the afterthought. He should be the first thought. Instead of saying, here's what I want, and I'll see if I can fit God around that, the question should be, how can I please God, and then I'll see if I can fit other stuff around that. I was talking with a young man one time, asked him, what do you want to be when you grow up? And this, by the way, this is a true story. This is not a made-up preacher story. This is an actual thing that I'm paraphrasing the conversation, but this actually took place. And I asked him, what do you want to be when he grew up? And he said NFL. He wanted to go play for the NFL. And I was like, well, cool. I mean, dream job, right? You play sports. Sports are fun, so it's a win-win. You get paid to have fun. And you get to travel a lot, and you get to be on TV. And who wouldn't want a professional football player's income? It's a nice chunk of money. That's great. Then I asked him, what do you think that'll do to your spiritual life? And he looked at me like, what do you mean? Okay, well, let's back up. What kind of skill set do you have to be in the NFL? Oh, well, you got to be able to run the dash in this time and catch and throw and tackle. And he talked about the skill set. Okay, where are you going to have to move? Where are you going to have to live to do this? Well, only large cities support teams, and so you got to be able to do this. You got to get traded and moved. He understood that. What kind of money you make? Oh, entry levels, usually this type of. He knew. He actually had studied and knew what it was going to take to do this job. So then we came back around to the question, okay, so now, what's this going to do to your spiritual life? And in the look he gave me, he didn't come right out and say it, but the look was, I didn't even know that you're supposed to think about that. Because a lot of times as children, when we craft our dreams for the future, rarely is our dream, I want a closer relationship with God. Usually the dream is, I want this. I want to be the movie star. I want to be the superhero. I want to be the this. And it's only an afterthought of, well, I want to do this, I will do this, and then I'll see if I can fit God somewhere into the cracks. So we talked about that. We talked about for a minute. So let's talk about what it might do to your spiritual life. NFL, they play on Sundays. So church ain't happening. You're not going to church. You'll probably be around a bunch of guys 24/7 who are crude, who are aggressive. You're going to be surrounded by alcohol and probably drugs and women, and not to mention making that kind of money. Usually people depend more on their bank account than they do on God. Playing for the NFL is not going to help your relationship with God. If anything, and most likely, it's going to trash it. And you see wheels were kind of starting to turn. Would you be willing to sacrifice God for the shiny thing that you want? Often we talk about, what do we have to sacrifice for God? Sometimes we sacrifice God for the thing that we want. Jesus says in Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added to you. And what things is he talking about? Well, that section of the Bible is, you could call it the worry section. Jesus says, don't worry about food or drink or your body or life. Don't worry about all these things. Focus on the kingdom of heaven first. All this other stuff will be added to you as God sees fit. Don't worry about the dream job, the dream income, the dream whatever. Focus on God. All this other stuff will be added to you. We sometimes have to be willing to give up what we want in order to please God. I know that the NFL is not really an option for most of us, but the same principle holds true, that when we're deciding where to go and what to do, are we thinking about God first and what He would have for us, even if that means we don't get what we want? Sometimes God's leadership doesn't always take us where we thought we would go. When I was graduating high school, I was right where several of you are today. I knew for sure that I would never be a minister. I knew. In fact, I remember having a conversation with my mom one time because she was like, oh, you should be a preacher. You'd be so good. And I remember thinking, that is not going to happen, crazy lady. My mom is not crazy. She's a wonderful person. I love her to death. But in that moment, I'm really concerned about her sanity because I am not minister material. So instead of going to Harding and pursuing the Bible degree, I went to the U of A and pursued an art degree. After the 5 years, I had a degree in graphic design and photography and went into construction. After that, after a while of construction, I got back into graphic design and did that for the most of a decade. During that time, I met my wife and we got married and bought a house and had kids and just really built up our American dream. And for all of that over a decade period of time, all of those decisions I made, none of them were placing God first. In fact, not only did I not place God first, God wasn't even part of the equation. I didn't go to the U of A, which is where I went to college. I didn't go to the U of A because I thought, here's a really great missional opportunity. Some people need to hear this message, and God wants me to go there and preach it. That was not on my thought process. I didn't choose art, graphic design. I didn't choose that because I thought, man, here's a good opportunity to build up a skill set where I can make posters and media and things like that to really share the gospel with people. No, I went to the U of A because I thought it was a really cool school and I like the Razorbacks. I went into art because I didn't want to do the math that everything else took. After college, I went into construction. Not because I thought, here's a great opportunity to build up skills so I could go serve people in third world countries or low-income people who need housing. No, I did that because after 5 years of art, I was sick of doing art and I just wanted to do something else. After a while, I got back into graphic design, not because here's an opportunity to serve God, but because I was sick of getting insulation on my arms and sawdust in my eyes. All of these decisions, they were based on what I wanted. There was the shiny things. And, I was fine with that. So after that 10 plus years, 10, 12, I don't even really know how many years it was. But somewhere along the way, Mandy and I decided that we wanted to get her out of the teaching position she was in the Fayetteville public school system. I kid you not, it was 3 days later, after we kind of had this discussion, 3 days later, she came across a poster that said, children's homes, house parents needed. And so she came home and she told me about this, and guys, I got to tell you, I was not excited about it. I wasn't. I did not want to make that big of a change. I mean, yeah, we're wanting to change for Jesus and everything, but I didn't want to change. I liked my life. I was comfortable how I was. We went to church. I was even a deacon at the church we went, but I was one of the most lukewarm people you would ever meet. Now, at the time, I wouldn't have said that. I said, yeah, I do my service for God, for the church. But I can tell you, I was a good guy. I was an all right guy, but I was lukewarm all the way. I didn't really want to change. I was not willing to chase after God. If God wanted to come to me, that's cool. I'd take that. But I wasn't going to go chasing after him. However, somewhere along that way in that decision-making process, something pinged in the brain, and we decided that as we made that decision about moving to children's homes, that we would put God first. And really it was me. I'm not saying her. I'm talking about me. I made the decision that I was going to put God at the front of the decision-making process rather than dragging him along like that little puppy on the leash. I felt God's calling to go do that. And so we packed up everything and we moved across the state. Sometimes God's calling. See, we always say God's providing an opportunity. He's opening a door. Yeah, it's a promotion. It's a better opportunity. It's a more income. That's what we always say. God's so gracious. He's opening a door. Sometimes God opens a door to make you uncomfortable. Sometimes God opens a door to make you less money. Why don't we ever say that God's providing an opportunity here? Yeah, we're going to be hurting for a while, but God, I see this as God's opportunity. We moved to children's homes, and for the next several years, that just kind of became part of the process. It became a habit of thinking about God at the beginning of the decision-making process and just doing that one thing, doing that one simple change had a huge effect. God, it sounds cheesy, I know. God worked on me. I don't even know how to describe it or what that even sometimes means. It wasn't like a moment where Saul, blinded on the road, became Paul. It wasn't a moment like Jacob wrestling with God all night and becoming Israel. But I know that after years of just that simple thing, okay, when I make a decision, what would God have for me in this? I know that 20-ish years after I said I would never be a minister, I was then talking to God saying, God, I recognize the talents and abilities and interests that you've given me, and I'm ready to serve you with those. And based on what you've done in my life, I think that youth ministry is the best way to do that. And he said, I know just the place. Anywhere with Jesus sometimes means that we don't go the direction that we thought we would go. Sometimes saying anywhere with Jesus means your will, not mine, be done. So the question is this morning, where do I go from here? Well, you go anywhere with Jesus leading the way. If you feel like you're totally lost, if you don't know where to go, maybe you've stopped following Jesus, that's okay. It's really okay. Because God is patient and loving, and he wants to take that leadership role back in your life, and he wants to lead you to green pastures and still waters. He wants to guide you into fruitfulness. Look for his leadership in your life and make your decisions based on what will please him. See, we try so hard to please ourselves. We make a lot of decisions based on what will make us happy, and so many times we regret it. I mean, think about every regret that you have in your life. I bet it has something to do with you trying to please yourself in some form or fashion. You will never, ever regret trying to please God. You will never regret putting God first. It will not happen. If you need help putting God first, if you need help looking for his leadership in your life, then won't you please come this morning as we stand and sing.